So without further ado, this is a man who you've seen walking around downtown South Bend with scores of people behind him, usually pointing wildly at various pieces of architecture.
Dodging traffic.
Dodging traffic. He is not crazy, at least in the legal sense, but we're delighted he returns our phone calls regardless, which might be a sign that you're certifiable at some point. I've known Steve for many, many years. As I say, Steve has forgotten more about local history than I will ever know, and makes him an ideal candidate to present our next program. Give it up for Steve Sadeh and his program, South Bend's Mansions. South Bend's Mansion, Estates, and Grand Palaces. Take it away, Steve.
Thank you, Andy. No pressure at all. Thanks for everybody for coming out, and apparently members of my family that also turned out today. Thank you. All right, a couple things. First of all, you'll see that I occasionally look down at the notes. Most of the time, it's going to be real hard for me to stand behind the lectern. I tend to walk around. If I get in the way, motion at me to get out of the way. I'll try not to, but no promises. We had done a different version of this a year or so ago when we touched on some of South Bend mansions. We wanted to add a few more things onto it. I love the title. I did not come up with the title. I believe the folks here did, with Mansions, Estates, and Grand Palaces. We did want to kind of clarify that, though. So first of all, we have to start off with some of the definitions. That's the one for mansion. Obviously, we're not going to read through all that. Basically, it's a dwelling place or a home for the lord of the manor, if you would. I had to seriously look these up and see what the differences were. The estate, once again, long enough definition. Landed property, also going into the legal aspect of what an estate is. And then, whoops, we missed one. The palaces here at the bottom. The official residence of sovereign, archbishop, bishop, or exalted person. I'd love that, especially the exalted person part, because we definitely seem to we had some of our own royalty here. I mean, the Studebakers definitely not shying away from being able to be a little exuberant, if you would. Of course. Starting with the Oliver Mansion. If everybody can see, a little forward. All right. Also known as Kopscher Home, obviously, it's the building next door. Now, they do tours. I think that one's off. Sorry, a little adjustment. Okay, thanks. They do tours 7 days a week. My friend Wayne Doolittle back there does tours here as well. I'm told they are 11, 1, and 2, Monday through Saturday, and then Sundays different times. Plus, they also have increased their current schedule because of Downton Abbey exhibit currently going on. So lots of opportunities to tour this. So not all of these houses that we have on here are obviously ones that you can see on the inside. So we're talking about the outside for some of them. It was actually, they moved in January 1st, 1897. The house was named Kopscher Home in 1900 in honor of the wedding anniversary of James and Catherine Oliver. Kopscher Home is the archaic name of Newcastleton, Scotland, where the Oliver family originally came from. So, actually, just a few details on that. Designed in the Queen Anne Romanesque style by Charles Alonzo Rich of New York architectural firm of Lamb and Rich. There you go. Couple things about that. The granite on the mansion in particular, with the exception of the pillars of the veranda, they're all fieldstone from around the area. Being able to utilize local resources. There's even a story of when they were building it, Mr. Oliver would actually go ahead and pay the local farmers. So they would bring in those stones by way of cart or wagon in order to bring them in, and he would buy the best ones and then kind of send them off with the rest. But so you could have perfect fits for a lot of what they were doing. This obviously was last year's picture. So what we did was, I took pictures that we had from before, because a lot of these have changed. Quite a few of them actually had some cool alterations as we go through some of these houses. So I also took pictures as recent as even last week or this week. So I want to show off a few things. All right, had to mention the Studebaker Museum, because this gets kind of left off. You know, we just talked about Copps Home being next door. I had to do a shameless plug for Andy. You're welcome. So, there you go. All right. Obviously, last year's picture, the Kaiser House across the street, built in 1887, Romanesque revival structure. Mr. William Kaiser was born in German Township on Portage Road. True hometown success story, if you would. He excelled in finance and investment. He served as South Bend City Commissioner under 2 different mayors. The Kaisers had 3 children and only had a daughter that outlived her brothers and the sole heir to the house. She was twice the winner of the St. Joe Valley Women's Golf League Championship. I thought that was a cool story. She passed away in 1929 and left no will. Her estate was heavily contested as 2 friends and 50 relatives fought over rights before a judge divided up the asset. In 1941, the house was divided into apartments by the then owners, the Schmidt family. This one is a little contested as far as things going on. Some renovations happened. It changed owners a couple times. More renovations going on right now. So this is actually from 2 days ago. So this is pretty much the same site that you see right now. Roof work being done, a lot of masonry work being done on it. One of the things do want to mention, if you get up close to that, even like the stones that are here, look at these. The mortar lines were actually done with what that's called grapelining mortar. Which is a different consistency mortar, but it's more of a decorative than anything else. But it's a raised mortar that actually goes between those bricks. It's very, very expensive, and it's a lost art. Not everybody can do that. But this entire structure is done with that. Just like Copps Room is, as well as the gate that goes around in the area of the fence around Copps Home as well. This actually predates Copps Home by 10 years. Everybody thinks that this was a copy of the Oliver's work. On the contrary, they had it first. So, all right, Tip Kenny Place, Home and Clem Studebaker, president of Studebaker Corporation. I know Andy probably knows way more about this than I do, but we're going to go ahead and mention some things. Let's see. Over the course of several trips during the year of 1885, Mr. Studebaker went to Chicago to interview architects for the task of designing this home. He actually interviewed 5 different firms before he settled on Henry Ivy Cobbs, whose most recent accomplishment include University of Chicago buildings, as well as the Potter Palmer residence on Lakeshore Drive. The Richardson Romanesque style, fortress-like stone walls, you see around there, complex roof lines, low arches, raising towers, and gabled dormers. Just a lot of height to it, very impressive. It's that whole idea of how cool can my front door be, which you're going to see a lot on this. It's having that street view and having that, your eyes are naturally drawn upward to be a little more imposing, if you would. They wanted to make sure that certain things were relayed in this when you saw it. So stability, security, permanence were the type of things that were doing, which is why it was used in materials that were used for it. 1889, the family took residence in their new home. The 24,000 square foot residence has approximately 40 rooms and 20 unique fireplaces. Now you can actually go to, whoops. That's why I passed it. You can actually go to tippy.com because they do offer actually I had 2 pictures. It's a new picture from this week. There's a website. So you can actually go through the whole photo gallery. They have a virtual tour, and this is a great one because they did have some renovations that happened on the interior that have been updated. I actually just went to that website to check that. All right. Let's see, and at any point in time, if you guys have any questions, we want to save as many questions for afterwards because a lot of people, I think, will have duplicate questions. But if there's something that you see up on the screen at that moment that, like, well, it's up on the screen, I want to ask, I'm okay with that if Andy's okay with that, just while it's fresh. So, the large Queen Anne, commonly known as the Oliver Inn, was built in 1880 by Dr. Louis Pagan. Smaller, simpler frame-style house, considering its neighbors down the road. It was purchased in 1886 by Oliver, who had it remodeled and enlarged to its present size. He deeded the property to their daughter Josephine and her husband George Ford. Mr. Ford was a prominent lawyer who served as the head of the legal department for the Oliver Plow Works. before being elected prosecuting attorney and then later congressman from the 13th District. After Congress, he returned as legal counsel for Oliver, as well as vice president of the Indiana Northern Railway Company. And then later Supreme Court judge in 1912. The house was remodeled in 1911 by Austin Shambo. The ownership changed to Gertrude Oliver and her husband Frederick Cunningham after the Fords died in 1913 and 1917 respectively. The house was then remodeled again in 27 by the architect Ernest Young. I believe that was, and then at that point in time the carriage house was also remodeled as well. All right. Right around the corner from that house, 1894, by architect Robert Bunsford, son-in-law and daughter of Clem Studebaker, resided here. Here's a more recent picture of it. They had it repainted. Parts of it repainted. Looks great. Saw them out there working. Let's see. Next one. The Wenger House. This is one of those houses that if you ever, it's over on Pennsylvania Avenue, right directly east of Ivy Tech. And it's one of those when you drive down the street, like, where did this come from? It just really doesn't fit its surroundings. But it's also a local landmark. It's one of those wonderful houses that was protected through the efforts of HPC. It's very cool. Mr. Wenger, a German-speaking native of Pennsylvania, arrived here in 1841 at the age of 20 years old. He walked from Pennsylvania, visiting several of his 20 siblings along the way before joining his brother Christian that year before. He was a hard worker, started cutting wood and splitting rails. In 1844, he bought 80 acres along Turkey Creek and married Christina Studebaker, whose family also came from Pennsylvania. The farm had 3 farmsteads that had been built, and this is the last of the original. A sturdy Italianate, of course, of all wood, simply impressive. Hand-turned details and unique window styles. And those are rounded. Rather than, with a lot of these, they'll have the fake square tops that actually recede in. These are actually round and are curved that way. So their farmstead actually extended, this last third of it, actually extended from this area in Pennsylvania all the way to Lincoln Way, where Miami and Lincoln Way is. That was their farmstead there. As a matter of fact, Wenger Street that's over there is accredited to this. And the first house built in Lincoln Way East Historic District was also Mrs. Wenger when she was a widow and just wanted something smaller to live in, and she sold the farm. All right, next. Wow, it's the older picture. 1627 West Washington, 1860 by Julie Hine and Charity Cobb. Sold to Charles Guthrie in 1863 and given to his sister Mary Guthrie in 1870. 1871, married Studebaker, Peter Studebaker, in 1880. The couple enlarged the house and added the front part of the house. Peter passed away in 1897, followed by Mary in 1914. The house was purchased by Albert Erskine in 1914, where he lived until 1914, where he lived until 1920, when Erskine Manor was completed and he and his family moved. So there you go. We have a more recent picture of that right now. Gorgeous house. That's 627 West Washington. I could probably do an entire show of nothing but West Washington and East Jefferson, but I'm going to try to mix it up a little bit so we're not just talking about those 2 streets. There's so many fantastic houses to talk about. All right, right here, love this one. Built in 1911 by Lewis Hickey for Ferdinand C. Raff. The Heptagon House was built on the spot of the late Schuyler Colfax residence. Has several pieces of Colfax memorabilia inside and actually incorporated into the house. The house currently boasts 5 bedrooms, 3.5 baths, almost 4,900 square feet. And 3 fireplaces, one of which the mantle was hand-carved in Florence, Italy. This house is currently on the market. Has anybody seen this? Guess how much this is going for right now, the list price? $885,500 is the list price as of this week. It's fantastic. It's on Colfax, actually. The thing was that it actually has more rooms than that because it was used as offices. But legally, the term for a bedroom has to have an egressable window and a closet. So although it only has 5 bedrooms, there's actually 6 additional rooms besides that. So, big house. The Chapin House, located on the corner of Navarre, was actually moved from Lamont Terrace when the estate overlooked Lamont Creek, which is Lamont Terrace where it crosses Park Avenue, just south of Leaper Park and just west of Memorial Hospital. The street is now Park Avenue. It was actually the carriage drive. So where the house was, Park Avenue actually was their driveway. They came all the way down up Park Avenue to Riverside and then went back toward Leaper Park to get back on the Michigan Road. That was their driveway. That whole area was the Chapins. At the time of Chapin's death in 1871, although a banker, he died in the state. He actually had there was an issue with his, he forgot to leave a will, and as a matter of fact, forgot to settle his affairs, if you would. His children, Mary Chapin Anderson and Edward Chapin, divided the property in 2, one on the east side of Park Avenue, and the rest on the west. The Andersons built 1710 Park in 1875, and Edward returned to the house and lived there until 1877, when he built a house that would be on Forest Avenue. But so Edward moved into his father's house after they moved it back. So the house was actually the house that was he moved into on Forest was actually moved and is now 1007 Riverside Drive. Keep moving houses on this street. Speaking of Mary Chapin Anderson, this is her house on Park Avenue. It's 710. It's just north of Lamont Terrace. This house, actually very cool, is actually moved twice. I know that sounds crazy. It was actually moved twice. It used to be the corner of the street is right on the other side of this house. Which actually is a cool story too. I'll tell you about it real quick. But this house was over here, turned. So first, they moved it back, still facing south. And then they picked it up and turned it again. And then added the wraparound porch. But now think about this, okay? Short of mobile homes, today's houses don't move really well. So this is definitely a compliment to how well these were built. The fact that they could withstand being moved several times. As a matter of fact, the house next door, 706, was her children's house. It's the first duplex in St. Joseph County. 5 bedrooms on either side, because she wanted to have her sons close, but since they already had family, they would have separate living spaces, so which is why they moved it and created the house here at 706. Next one. All right, Hodson's Castle, 1888. Just newly repainted. Gotta give credit is due. Renaissance Painting did this, and they did phenomenal work. This house was actually all plum at one time, and all those details were lost because this dark color that was on there that kind of hid everything. There was actually a tower right here that actually was another 6 feet taller. They reduced it and changed the wraparound porch that used to be here, because this extended all the way around. But they thought it was gaudy, so in the 70s they actually lowered the top here by a whole level and then got rid of that porch. These original posts here, these are the original posts, actually. They were, during the remodel, they were actually taken off, repaired, and then put back into place. Very cool. That is on Park Avenue. Park Avenue. The Hodson's Castle, Hodsons. It's very cool. There was let's see, rich hardwoods such as cherry and walnut adorn the interior first level with large pocket doors and wainscoting from floor to ceiling. Mr. Hodson was actually representative of the Indiana Lumber Company at the time, so they were showing off wood in a big way. There's walls, each room has kind of got its own theme in it. Very cool. All right, this is a great one. The Cutter House, 1906, they're all great ones. Schneider and Austin Architects, Tudor Revival. This was land purchased from Mary Chapin Anderson, of course, because it was on that side of the dividing line with her and her brother. Two-story front entrance, brick, stucco, and timber elements. Let's see, the large solarium in the rear was actually just redone. They just did a bunch of new remodeling on it, fixed some windows up, repaired the roof, actually did some alterations on the interior of the house as well. Large, fantastic river view. You were literally right just short of the bank, so you have this beautiful view on the back of it. Cutter moved in 1912 after selling the company to Westinghouse. This is George Cutter. He had that wonderful saying about lighting the path. He actually, the former Transpo garage fields, they were in contention that's building the new neighborhood over there. That was actually a site of his production facility. So he was one of the first manufacturers to switch from gas to electric lighting. Let's see, it's also been nominated for a Southold Preservation Award for this year. A lot of great work. As a matter of fact, I was there last fall, and there's a large window on this side here. And to get in the new cabinetry that they designed for the third floor, they actually had to remove that bank of windows and lift it in that way because it was too big to get up the stairs. That was just last year's good stuff. All right, Birdsall Mansion, 1898. This is on the corner of Colfax and William. It's a little rough, I saw the owner yesterday, gave him a little bit of grief about, but he did, there are some new things coming to that. It was actually, besides being the site of the Birdsall Project, which was a sort of interactive art show that was going on. But this is 1898 Birdsall Mansion. Joseph Benjamin and Olive Tarbell Birdsall. Mr. Birdsall was president of the Birdsall Manufacturing Company, founded by his father. He lived in the house until about 1927. Huge third floor ballroom. And it's just beautiful. They had one of the first places to actually have a fire escape in South Bend, leading right from the third floor down. Unique stones were actually brought here from New York State. So the coloring in these stones have deep veins of pink to it. A little different from the ones even that we have here on this property. So you can see those really pretty rose and pink veins to them. Let's see, he actually brought Bavarian craftsmen here to specifically build the house and hand create all the interior wood details. As a matter of fact, there are wonderful scrollwork in not only the dining room, but even the bedrooms. You'll see that the fleur-de-lis, which is part of the family's crest, was actually represented and hand-carved all along the trim work, and not only the mantels, but also in the corner rosettes above each doorway and along the chair rails throughout the rooms too. It's very, very nice. This was actually used for offices for decades. Even Judge Nimitz, currently, he had his legal office on the basement level, has a separate entrance that actually went in. Now, a couple cool things about this house, besides all those things. I mentioned that fleur-de-lis. There's one mantle that's actually tile, and it's blue and white tile, and it has the fleur-de-lis in it. There's actually one of those tiles that's upside down, and it was done intentionally because the homeowner and the workers, who were devout Christians, said that only God was perfect. So there was one tile on the bottom right of this that's actually turned the wrong way. It's very cool. There's also a story of the back porch on this. I should have added a picture of the back porch. That would make too much sense. But it doesn't match. It actually doesn't fit the house at all. It has kind of a prairie style to it with exposed timbers and kind of a narrow feel to it. Well, that was actually the result of a certain architect that was working on a house down the street that hated the back porch. And actually had approached the Birdsalls about, let me change that porch for you. We'll get it straightened out. I still like the way it'll be my gift to you. I don't like the back porch. That prairie style porch was actually Frank Lloyd Wright. design. He designed it and put it on there because he didn't like the way it looked back there. He walked along that alley and had that changed.
Wasn't that house moved to that location?
No, this one has actually been here. These lots right here, this used to be a gas station, but there was a residence back here that was moved. This picture was taken this week. These window repairs are done intentionally. They pulled us out to do the window repairs on them, and they're putting insulation in for the holes while the windows are being repaired and the glazing is drying. So these aren't all broken out, they're actually being repaired. I had to point that out. Like I said, I was picking on the owner a little bit, but. All right, the 1249 East Jefferson, this was actually the other Birdsall house. This was John C. Birdsall Jr. This is the youngest son of John Birdsall. He was the inventor of the Clover Huller and the founder of the Birdsall Manufacturing Company. Architect was Austin on this, built it in 1902. Mr. Birdsall's daughter married Irving Sibling of Sibling Manufacturing. His son, John C. Birdsall, became vice president of International Harvester, and the other son, Joseph Benjamin, became a professor at Harvard. After his death, the widows sold the house to Judge Elmer Pease, where the judge, his blind mother, wife, and 4 children lived. The judge was honored by the city by having a school on the south side. Our friend George was talking about that. My phone is actually ringing. Okay, make sure you turn off your phones. I hope we got that on film because that's hilarious.
You don't have to win $1, Steve, that's the rules.
You know, you didn't make an announcement about turning off phones. I guess I should have, because then I would have remembered to turn off my phone. Let's see, the 20-room house has a rough stone porch, chimneys, turret, balustrade, and foundation. A large 2-story carriage house sets just north of the house. Sorry, I'm turning this ringer off. Everybody I know is here. Anyway, there you go. My family's here, right? All right, this is an updated picture I just took a couple days ago. Just a gorgeous house. They actually had, this house has been sided, wood siding, but they were out there just cleaning and scrubbing it the other day, which is why I stopped to come by and take pictures again because it looks so terrific. All right. 1243 East Jefferson. This is the Kuhn House, 1895. This was a picture taken last year. I'm going to point out a couple things here. This picture I just took a couple of days ago. So, and this is why I went back to take more pictures, because you know the beauty of having one of these real gems is the upkeep, to keep it to be a gem. So I had to mention that. There's such a spectacular work on painting this, and even doing some of the small repairs. They had some issues with the different balustrades here, and these will all need to be realigned. But just all the painting and everything that they did to it, I think they even changed. Yep, so very, very nice work. You gotta like that. I like it whenever I go by a place every, few weeks. Oh, more great work is being done. Had to talk about this one, and actually got pictures from the History Museum. Had to thank them, as well as pictures from Andrew as well. Let's see. We have. All right. 1219 East Jefferson. 1880. This was the Jan Studebaker house. It used to be Sunnyside. This is 1880. It was built. 1950. It was raised. And these next couple slides came from Andy. Whoop! Hello. Happy finger. All right. So this one is taken on Eddie. We decided Jefferson and Eddie. Very good. And you see the house way back there. Close up again. Way back there. And then also, this great photo. Sorry, it's a little blurry. I had to blow it up a bit. This was one of those things that, this house was really one of the things that moved the historic preservation movement in South Bend when this one came down. just because of, it was in disrepair earlier, but there was a solemn feeling to go, maybe we should start concentrating, maybe we should start saving some things. This started one of the things helped start historic preservation here. Great place. All right. Is that another one? Wait a minute. Where did this come from? Oh, that's not the same one. All right. I don't know where I even got that picture from. Huh. It must be the other side of Sunnyside. Sorry, we were having problems with my slides earlier. I was adding things, and then everything went dark. And luckily, I had it backed up, so we started adding things again. Did want to mention this one. This is let's see, Clement Studebaker, 1908. This is obviously last year's picture. This is a treaty at Green Lawn, which later became Vincent Bendix's Chateau Bendix. He actually never lived in that house. This is one on Jefferson and Green Lawn. He actually just used it for entertaining. He actually lived on the house we mentioned earlier in Chicago on Lakeshore Drive, but he used this one for entertaining. And even had the first in-ground pool in South Bend, as well as having a helicopter pad out on the lawn because he liked to fly helicopters. As a matter of fact, he even hosted many extravagant parties there, if you would, right following his races, different airplanes and helicopters, what have you. There's even there's a school there right now, but he's kept some of the areas still intact. We actually had, I toured through there, went through one of the bathrooms that is very strange rose pink color, and it's everything. The whole thing is pink. I mean, the floor tile, the wall tiles, everything, even the sink and the toilet, everything. And the story behind it goes is that a Hollywood starlet that was coming out to witness the race and had come and enjoyed one of these wonderful parties there actually said, my favorite color is pink. Yeah, I'd love to. I've never had a pink colored room. So absolutely, the whole room he changed out to match their favorite color. Cool thing about this house, it actually has, besides its many levels to it, there's actually two lower levels. There's a sub-basement below the basement. You actually went through the regular lower level had a walk-in cooler that they would keep everything cold in. Well, there's a false wall that actually allows you to go down to another safe room underneath everything. That's another vault room. That's the entire, it's about half the size of that area of the house. It's big. Really big, a huge safe room. Very cool. Well, if you think about it, I mean, with everything going on, not everyone trusted banks. So a lot of things they kind of hid away. And God knows what else. During Prohibition at that time, you had to keep your liquor safe. If you were going to be celebrating all the time and you were going to be holding parties, you couldn't get caught with that. So, and of course, the front gate. Wonderful S, still up there. So, and that's the inside here. This is the one of the parlors there. It's actually right in the middle of that courtyard. What I showed here, that is the doorway. That is right there. Gorgeous, absolutely wonderful. Let's see. Speaking of Erskine, 1915, this actually is Erskine Manor. As we're going through different things between the Studebakers, we had to mention this as well. Wonderful house, kind of a unique style on things. Took Romanesque, had these wonderful, huge statues, and great vases, another one. It actually was split up back in the 70s. It was purchased in the 70s, split up late 80s, early 90s into being multiple units. And then it was actually condos. I believe right now, if I'm right, it's actually being reverted back. Now I had to show these historic photos just for that slide. I will notice the Historic Preservation Commission. Okay, we just celebrated our 40th anniversary. That may be the original car that we But I saw that slide, I'm like, I have to keep, this is going in the show just because of that. I just think, I want the magnet.
Where is you located at?
This is right off of Miami on Erskine Manor. If you head east on Erskine Manor, have the first 2 or 3 hours, there's a drive that goes up to the top of the hill. And this is the top of the hill. This is actually the rear part. Pardon me?
St. Mary's Academy.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. You're right, it was St. Mary's Academy after that. It's been, right now it's, well, as of 3 years ago, it's still condos, still split up in about 4 different units. But I believe that there's new owner changing that.
Steve, if I may interject, where
Please. Oh, sorry.
what looks to be a Crown Victoria is sitting right there, that is the exact spot where Studebaker did a lot of their publicity photographs from the time the mansion was built up through the 1950s.
Right, this is actually the back side of the house, and, which is back, like here. You'll see that sunroom on that photo there, but this is the front of the house, which actually faces north. And this is the drive from the south, because it kind of curves around and holds you in. Erskine also had, we're going to mention this next one. This is the Hoffman House. 1925. This particular house was actually, Mr. Hoffman was, he wrote a, besides being, and you could probably share more light on Mr. Hoffman's history, was actually one of the most successful Studebaker salesmen ever. Had a couple dealerships in Los Angeles. He was actually brought here by Mr. Erskine to help save the company and do a few other things. But he was put in, he's vice president of marketing, is that right?
And later president, and I believe he was chairman of the board at one point, too.
Outstanding, thank you, sir. This house is over on Miami and Dunmore. You may know it now as Stanley Clark School. There you go. Mrs. Hoffman, wife was also very, they'd done very well, and Mrs. Hoffman was also involved in the establishment of Twickenham Hills. Most people don't realize that they'd actually worked with Place Builders and 2 other builders at that time to go ahead and lay out and develop Twickenham Hills. The Hoffmans were very successful and actually had helped as developers for that area. So, there you go. The school is actually named after Dr. Clark. Get these confused. It was actually right there. This house is on Jefferson. It's on the south side of the street. It's actually part of the East Wayne Local Historic District, right off of Eddy Street. This was actually Dr. Stanley Clark's house. He was one of the pioneers and doctors in the use of X-ray machines. Very cool house. It's had this painting done last year. What do you guys think of that with the colors? Yeah, a lot of people it's either you love it or you hate it. When they were first putting it up, and I was talking to the guy as he's mixing the paint, I'm like, where are you putting that? And he's, oh, it's going on the house. I'm like, really? Really? Because we have no control over color, by the way. Historic Preservation Commission doesn't do anything about color. Building materials we talk about all day, but color we don't have any choice on.
What year?
Oh, you know, this one, 1924 is what I have for this one. So most of that area where East Wayne Local Historic District is was actually the Studebaker's Reserve and Golf Course. It wasn't until they had started plotting that out and brought Austin Shamble along to go ahead and design the houses in East Wayne. And most of those houses were actually built between 1924 and 1929. They wanted something that had that English village kind of feel to it, which is why when you go through East Wayne, all the roads kind of rope around into circles, if you would. They wanted something that was pedestrian friendly, but also kind of make you feel like you were part of that community when you drove through it. So during that time is when all those houses were, well, about 90% of those were actually built during those 4 or 5 years. So this would be just before that. So these were the first ones to buy land from Studebakers to do that. All right, how's my time? Not bad. All right, Gotta thank everybody for coming out. Definitely wanted to thank Stu Baker for having me out here to talk, and also the History Museum that allowed us some photos as well as some additional research information, and of course, historic preservation. Questions? Who's got